Very good evening and thank you for joining GBS News at 9. My name is Stephen George and our sign language interpreter tonight is Paul Madenge. And now, President William Ruto has today said 1.2 million customers had been connected to the national electricity grid under the last mile connectivity program, while another 460,000 are set to benefit by 2026 during the contract signing ceremony for the improved access to electricity through mini grids and stand-alone solar system under Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project in Nairobi. Ruto said 63,000 out of 93,000 identified public facilities have been connected to power, including 22,900 public primary schools. The president said 1,071 public facility projects were completed in the 2023-2024 financial year and another 1,450 are underway in the 2024-2025 financial year. Now, contracts worth over 10 billion shillings were signed on Wednesday. Ruto said 14 contracts would establish 113 mini grids and take electricity to Turkana, Marsabit, Samburu, Isiolo, Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Tana River, Lamu, Kilifi, Kwale, and Narok counties.
Today, we are setting on a journey to light up a huge landmass of the Republic of Kenya that in ordinary circumstances would not have been able to get access to electricity. It's only happening in under your administration, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, you know Kenya's Vision 2030, and indeed your own commitment is to see universal access to electricity by the year 2030. And that is in tandem, Your Excellency, with Africa's Mission 300.
Through the last mile connectivity program under the Kenya Power, 1.2 million customers have already been connected in the last 2 years, with another 460,000 set to benefit by 2026. Through REDEC, we have connected 63,000 out of 93,000 identified public facilities, including 22,900 public primary schools. This work continues with 1,071 public facilities projected to be completed in 2023-2024 financial year, and another 1,450 currently underway in the financial year 2024-2025.
Senators have clashed over Raila's lose for the African Union chairmanship position after several opinions were raised by the lawmakers in the lower house. The clash comes in amid the rising conversation on the creation of a border-based government intended to incorporate Odinga into it, which other leaders have objected now. At the same time, the House of Reason has discouraged divisive politics, as Davis Karani reports.
We must make Raila Odinga the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya.
This is a conversation that has been trending online, fluttering and later found its way to the floor of the Senate, a conversation aimed to place Odinga into a new position in the Republic of Kenya, spearheaded by Nandi County Senator Honorable Samson Cherargei.
I think it is now the right time to fully implement the NADCO report, the National Dialogue Report, Mr. Speaker. Raila Odinga has huge and well-decorated track record of fighting for democracy, rule of law. When Raila Odinga was fighting the previous regime, some of the people who are in opposition, Mr. Speaker, who are now correcting messes, were in that government that were pursuing even abuses of human rights, and they want to lecture us about, Mr. Speaker, how a country should be run.
The sentiments uttered by Cherargei caught the attention of Nyandarua Senator John Metu, who questioned Cherargei's sentiments at the floor of the House, challenging him to cite a clause in the NADCO report that states about Odinga being appointed as the Prime Minister, sparking more reactions at the Senate building.
I have read the NADCO report page by page to the last page, which of the recommendations of the NADCO report, he bases his argument that Raila Odinga is the one that will become the Prime Minister. Because our position of the Prime Minister will be there, but there is nowhere in the NADCO report that it proposes the Honorable Raila Odinga. And actually, I don't think the NADCO report was formulated to assimilate and have Raila Odinga join government.
Odinga, who lost to Djibouti's candidate in the African Union chairmanship position bid on Saturday, has been showered and praised by many leaders in the floor of the Senate, especially from the Kenya Kwanza administration, which got the attention of Senator Onyonka, who questioned the current Odinga's proponents and challenged them to reflect back on 3 years ago.
I see here today my colleagues celebrating and talking about how Raila is the greatest man who was. How I wish we listened to what they are saying 3 years ago. How Raila was a mganga, how he was somebody who was completely useless to our political dispensation. Raila has been a hero worship, yes, but we will expect him to give us the excellence we expect from him. He will join your government, and if he is not going to demand that abductions stop in this republic, that we stop the corruption that is going on in our country, that we actually govern ourselves with the responsibility where we accept that our countries within our region respect us and we respect them.
The country is expected to remain united and calls for national unity embodied in the Senate House.
Kenyans have realized that we have a potential as a country when we integrate everybody into the leadership of this nation. Mr. Speaker, sir, indeed unfortunate that some few people, for their own selfish reason, chose to celebrate the failure of one Raila Amolo Odinga because they believe that their political future lies in Baba joining hands with them. I want to tell them, oh, unto them, Mr. Speaker, we have woken up and we're no longer going to do tribal politics to befit one person. Mr. Speaker, sir, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are.
If the NADCO report will be implemented and Odinga appointed as the Prime Minister, will he agree and take over the position? How beneficial will this position be to a Kenyan taxpayer? Davis Karani, GBS News, Nairobi.
The president of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Philemon Yang, held a high-level consultative meeting this morning with Kenya's Prime CS and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs. Now, they discussed at the railways headquarters in Nairobi on bilateral issues and more on the visit. Yang, who is on an official visit in Kenya, is also scheduled to meet with President William Ruto at State House, Nairobi later today. During his visit, Yang will engage with senior government officials, deliver a public lecture, and interact with members of the United Nations community, academia, policy, think tanks, and private sector stakeholders. His itinerary also includes visits to green spaces and wildlife conservation areas in Nairobi. The visit highlights Kenya's strong ties with the UN and reaffirms its role in regional and global affairs.
And I want to underscore one thing. One, we are working very, very closely together. And we are proud of Madam Bangura. She has been very, very proactive. She does not hesitate when there are any issues that are lagging behind. She does not mince her words, very blunt, but very diplomatic. So we like her for that. The other thing that I would just want to say is that we really look forward to your support at your level because we are committed to making this a very, very critical hub for the United Nations. And the previous speakers have really elaborated on this.
And the Nairobi duty station is the fastest growing duty station in the UN. It's the only duty station growing. Today, as I speak to you, we have 86 UN offices in Kenya, 73 in the Gigiri. When the UNEP was set up, it was 300 staff. Today, it's 6,500, 11,000 families and dependents. So the floating one, people who come for meetings, about 3,000. So as the Director General who is responsible for safety and security of staff, my total people I'm responsible for is 20,000 in Kenya today. And we have 2 global offices, UNEP and UN Habitats. By the middle of next year, we're going to have 3 additional global offices, UNICEF, UNFPA, UN Women. Their headquarters will be in New York, but the bulk of their offices staff will be here. So it will be their global operation. Part of their global operation is going to be shifted in Kenya. So their headquarters will be there, skeleton staff, but the bulk of their staff will be there doing the global operation.
Thank you, Kenya, for receiving the United Nations here. I see many things happening. On the side of Kenya, the efforts are tremendous. On the side of the United Nations, the efforts are tremendous.
Ugandan opposition leader Dr. Kizza Besigye is still being detained at the military prison in Uganda. Dr. Besigye has been on one-week-long hunger strike protesting against the alleged charges of illegal firearm possession and being a threat to Ugandan security. His health seems to have deteriorated so much.
Once a vibrant politician, a father of opposition in Uganda, and running for presidency 4 times, giving President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni a run for his money, Kizza Besigye is now a pale shadow of his yesterday life, wasting away in the Ugandan military prison for about 3 months now. Every now and then, these are some of the scenes Dr. Besigye has gone through in the hands of Ugandan police or armed forces.
My home. Get off. This is my home. Look, this is my home. Get off here. This is my home. I'm not in South. This is my home. This is my home.
In his campaigns, he had managed to bring Ugandan nation to a standstill. In November last year, Besigye had come to Kenya to grace the launch of Martha Karua's book here in Nairobi. Reports had suggested that the Kenyan and Ugandan intelligence operatives abducted him and took him to Malava border, where they handed him over to the Ugandan military. At the court, he was charged with illegal firearm possession and a threat to Ugandan national security. Besigye has vehemently denied the alleged charges against him.
The language of the state, the act, my lord.
Yes, but you can break it down in
Most congratulations. My lord, this is an application brought under Section 38 of the Agriculture Act for this writ of habeas corpus, which is for an order that Dr. Kizza Besigye and Obed Butale here be brought before you.
Dr. Besigye has presently been on a week-long hunger strike, his health deteriorating to the worst. His lawyer saying he's suffering from hypertension, demanding his release, but the government of Uganda has remained adamant. Indeed, Dr. Besigye is now a frail shadow of himself, his face full of grimace and wrinkles, the large protruding eyes now sunken in their sockets, talk of being hardened by years of battling Uganda's oppressive government. The 68-year-old was a former military officer and a one-time personal doctor to President Yoweri Museveni. Victor GBS News at 9.
Further changes are yet to be done in the National Assembly as looming allegations to broaden a broad-based government fuming aimed and the changes targeting to incorporate the Azimio members of the National Assembly while jacking out Gachagwa's allies chairing these committees now. Davis Karani reports.
The leadership in the August House at the House Committee levels is yet to have new occupants, especially at the committee chairperson's level, a move aimed to solidify the Azimio Kenya Kwanza relationship in Parliament through the incorporation of the Azimio lawmakers in chairing the House committees, adhering to the call that was made by the National Assembly Minority Whip Millie Odhiambo.
This government is broad, but it is not based. So don't call us to be in a broad-based government. It has to be broad-based government.
The parliamentary purge targeting Gachagwa's allies is expected to broaden further as the minority side of the government slated for new positions, and the leaders who might lose their positions include Kiharu constituency lawmaker Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, whose Budget and Appropriations Committee chair positions in the National Assembly will soon be de-whipped according to the looming allegations.
Forgive me, I'm just sharing my thoughts, because that is what we came to do here. We keep doing the same mistake all the time. For the last 10 years, our ordinary revenue has only been achieved 67%. For the last 10 years on average. To a low of 56%, the highest has been 75%.
The other leaders whom details have stated on being at the tip of losing their positions includes James Gakuya, who chairs the Public and Accounts Committee, Eric Karemba, who chairs the Labour Committee, Wanjiku Muhia from Kipipiri constituency chairing the Regional Integrations Committee, and Robert Pukose of Endebess constituency chairing the Health Committee in the House.
I've been notified by the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party that the Committee on Selection is yet to conclude the nomination of members to the lapsed committees. Further, the leaders note that consultations are ongoing and will be concluded soon to allow for the reconstitution of the specified committees.
The looming allegations are sprouting out in the air 1 week after the Senate leadership de-whipped leaders allied to Gachagua, and they include Senator John Nyutu, Karungu Tangwa, John Metu, and Ken Aseki from Kajiado constituency. Will the broad-based government achieve its vision to Kenyans if it will broaden?
We are taking a short break. Keep your feedback streaming into our social media platforms at GBS TV Africa. The SMS line is 21144. We'll be right back.
So through the four gospel books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, we can know the heart of Jesus in depth. And the Jesus that we can feel him through the scriptures, and I'm very thankful about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our sins. He carried our sins. And he was crucified, and he received the punishment for sins. And he was put into the tomb and resurrected in 3 days. This is the gospel that we speak. About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being crucified. He was crucified to pay for our sins. And through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean. However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
Hello, kids. Did you know a year has 31,557,600 seconds? Why do you think so? Exactly. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 365 and 25 days in a year. We count the extra 0.25 because of leap years. When you multiply all these numbers together, you get a huge number of seconds. That's why a year feels long, but time still flies when you are having fun.
AS and A levels is a qualification program that is advanced. That is after one has completed the high GCSE program, then they advise to continue for AS and A level. AS typically is a 1-year program, and A levels is done in the 2nd year after completing the AS level. And this one equips the student with the knowledge that is recommended for the university and also by employers outside the countries or within the country.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. The university's academic staff union has issued a 7-day strike notice to the University of Nairobi over what it has termed systematic law flaunting. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, February 19th, the UASU chapter of the University of Nairobi has demanded that the University Council be sent home or they take to the streets. Dr. Richard Bosire, the chairperson of the UON chapter, asked the Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba to send the council packing immediately. Susan Nganga with more.
The clock is ticking for the University of Nairobi after a 7-day ultimatum was issued for a strike by the University Academic Staff Union, WASU, after they placed an ultimatum to either disband the University Council or face industrial action. Leading the charge is the union chapter chair, Dr. Richard Bosire, who is calling for the immediate removal of the council, particularly its chair, Amukoa Anangwe. The union accuses him of sabotaging the university's operation and wants Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba to intervene without delay. But that's not all. The union is also demanding a full investigation by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission into an alleged plot by high-ranking government officials to seize prime university land. This land, located opposite the Kenyan Broadcasting Corporation and near Hotel Boulevard, is said to have already cost the university billions of shillings.
Also call upon the EACC to swiftly move into the university. There is abuse of office by the council and the chancellor. There is also a violation of the law, and especially Chapter 6 of the Constitution. You cannot manage an institution for personal benefit, or you become proxies or politicians outside the university just to loot the university dry.
The union claims multiple power centers, including the Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, and Council, are facilitating the alleged looting and must be held accountable.
Councils, chancellors, they come and go, and we have seen them. They come and go, but they leave the staff behind. And the staff only have the University of Nairobi to fall back to. It is that staff, it is the students and the parents who will suffer irreparable damage if this university is allowed to go down. And we fear that if nothing is done, the University of Nairobi as we know it is dying.
Adding fuel to the fire, the union is calling for the dismissal of the university's chancellor and demanding that all vacant positions at the University of Nairobi be advertised immediately. The strike notice comes amid turbulent period for the institution, marked by leadership wrangles that saw the suspension and eventual dismissal of former Vice-Chancellor Professor Stephen Kiama. Acting Vice-Chancellor Professor Margaret Hutchison now faces fresh leadership battles. Susan Nganga, GBS News.
The ongoing 8th Africa Agri-Expo in Nairobi has brought together industry experts, policymakers and farmers to explore the latest advancements in agriculture technology. The event aims to promote modern farming methods that can enhance productivity and sustainability in a sector that remains the backbone of Kenya's economy. Agriculture employs over 40% of the total population, at least 70% of rural Kenyans, yet many farmers still rely on traditional practices. Experts at the Expo emphasized the need for adopting cutting-edge technology, including precision farming, climate-smart solutions, and mechanization to boost yields and mitigate the effects of climate change.
Agriculture, the backbone of Kenya's economy, employs more than 40% of total population and at least 70% of rural Kenyans. However, it still depends on traditional methods. Adopting advanced technology and innovations could unlock immense opportunities and revitalize farming. Agriculture fairs, exhibitions and expos are some of the platforms used to disseminate ideas on technology and innovation.
Definitely, I think events like these, as I said, they have power to create an impact. So what we are seeing today in this event is companies coming in from more than 30 countries, international companies, international agriculture professionals. And most of the companies who are coming in here are coming in with an idea to explore business opportunities, with an idea to explore business partnerships in Africa. So we're looking at new investments. In the morning, there were the principal secretaries from the Ministry of Investment and Trade, from the Ministry of Agriculture, who talked about a conducive investment environment in the country where they are, attracting more investments in the country. And events like these are the platforms where they can talk about the opportunities, they can talk about the challenges, they can talk about what can be done, how we can, put efforts together to make sure we're reaching that goal.
At the 8th Africa Agri Expo, which is currently ongoing in Nairobi, farmers had the opportunity to interact with industry leaders and learn about digital tools such as artificial intelligence-driven crop monitoring systems, automated irrigation, and drone technology for mapping and pest control.
We find a lot of opportunities in Kenya. That is where Kenya would be our first African country where we want to commercialize our products. We are a R&D driven company with more than 150 scientists exclusively working for developing the biological solutions for the problems that exist in the nature, because be it abiotic stress or biotic stress in agriculture. And our products and solutions are working well in India. We're the fastest growing biological company in India. Now we're entering Kenya, and also we are expanding it to US very soon.
We are visiting Kenya, this expo, Africa Agri Expo here in Kenya today, and we are very delightful to attend this expo over here. And our company basically is a manufacturer of pumps, motors and agricultural equipments like this is a rotavator, ambi-plow, cultivators and many more.
Agricultural exhibitions like this serve as platforms for knowledge sharing and networking, allowing stakeholders to access real-time information on emerging trends.
I think events like these have the power to create an impact. So the whole idea of the event is to bring together the complete value chain, the ecosystem, whether it's the policymakers, whether it's international companies, whether it's solution providers or financial bodies, or ultimately the farmers. So we're talking about latest innovations, we're talking about new technological developments, we're talking about solutions for small-scale farms as well, those solutions which are specifically targeted and designed for African market. So that's obviously going to create a lot of impact.
So Kenyan agriculture, largely a smallholder farmers, which we already heard of. So mechanization and technology adoptions are going to be very, very critical to scale up, to support the food security of Kenya and Africa. And I also see, especially soil health, the technology that revolves around maintaining and improving the soil health of Kenyan agriculture and African agriculture. I'm sure, the technologies that we bring in, a lot of microbial, molecular level technologies that we focus in India could contribute a lot to Kenyan agriculture. That's what we strongly believe.
Kenya's agricultural sector is gradually embracing technology, with the government and private sector initiatives supporting digital tools for farmers. According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, 60% of small-scale farmers still lack access to mechanized farming. Across Africa, agricultural technology adoption remains low, with mechanization rates at only 10% compared to 50% in Asia. Hilary Kabila, GBS News, Nairobi.
The corridors of justice today witnessed high drama as Juja Member of Parliament George Ndungu appeared before the Anti-Corruption Court to face charges of forgery. The prosecution alleges that Koimburi falsified academic documents, including Kenya's Certificate of Secondary Education and Certificate of Participation from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. The case making an expected return after being withdrawn in 2021. Susan Ngwanga has more on the developing story.
It was a dramatic day at the Anti-Corruption Court as Juja Member of Parliament George Ndongo Koimburi stood in the dock to answer to charges of forgery. The prosecution alleges that the Member of Parliament forged a Kenyan Certificate of Secondary Education certificate in 1994 and a Certificate of Participation from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology between 2011 and 2012. According to court documents, Koimburi is accused of knowingly presenting these forged documents to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission on March 8, 2021. The case had initially been withdrawn back in 2021, but has now been revived. The Member of Parliament pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges and was released on a cash bail of 200,000 Kenyan shillings. His legal team expressed confidence in his defense, while the prosecution vowed to present compelling evidence during the trial. The charges against Koimburi have reignited discussions about academic integrity among leaders who are holding public offices. Susan Nganga, GBS News.
Police in Embu County have intercepted a vehicle transporting over 1,500 kilos of donkey meat along the Kiritiri-Embu highway. Along with the meat, authorities also seized 15 donkey hides and other body parts. One suspect is in custody as investigations are still underway to identify those behind this illegal trade. This seizure comes just months after a similar bust in the county, raising concerns over the growing problem of illicit donkey slaughter.
Embu residents have been cautioned against buying uninspected meat or from unknown sources after 1,500 kilos of donkey meat was seized by police on Tuesday night on transit to an unknown destination. The meat, packed in sacks, was seized at around midnight along the Kiritiri-Embu highway. In addition to the meat, authorities also confiscated 15 donkey hides and private parts, which were similarly believed to be part of the illicit shipment. The driver of the vehicle, a suspect in this case, is currently in police custody and is expected to face charges in court after further processing. Investigations are ongoing as law enforcement officers search for those involved in the illegal donkey slaughter trade. This seizure comes barely months after a similar bust in December 2022 when police raided a homestead in Runyenje's constituencies and found 20 freshly slaughtered donkey carcasses. 3 suspects were arrested during that operation, and authorities suspected the meat was destined for markets in Nairobi. In response to these incidents, Embu West Sub-County Public Health official John Njagi issued a stern warning to residents about the dangers of consuming uninspected or meat from unknown sources, stating that these illegal slaughter operations indicate an alarming trend of unregulated meat trade in the area. He urged customers to be extra cautious when purchasing meat to avoid health risks.
Tungetaka kuelezea wakaaji wa Embu, tafadhali tujiadhari na nyama ambazo hatujui pale zimetoka. Embu nyama inatoka 800. Unaenda pale pengine unapata wengine wanauza 400. Siujiulize hiyo ya 400 imetoka wapi? Ya 800 imetoka wapi? So tungewauliza tafadhali wakaaji wa Embu, kuleni nyama ambaye mnajua ni halali. Hapana kimbilia ile bei rahisi. Hiyo bei rahisi inaweza kukuletea maneno, inaweza kukuletea madhara. Pengine ilikuwa na anthrax, imekufia nyumbani, na iko na magonjwa. We know we have zoonotic diseases. Alafu wewe itakuwa gharama kwako kwenda hospitali kutibiwa.
Dr. Arthur Njiru also raised concerns about the potential threat of zoonotic diseases which have been transmitted from animals to humans. This follows an outbreak of anthrax in certain parts of Embu County, which was reported in December last year.
Embu tumekuwa na ugonjwa, mlipuko wa ugonjwa inaitwa kimeta ama kwa kimombo inaitwa anthrax kutoka mwezi wa Disemba. So tumeulizwa tuweze kuwajibika sana wakati tunaangalia nyama yoyote yenye inasafirishwa ili kuepukana na wananchi kupatana na madhara ya ugonjwa wa anthrax, na ndio tuweze kuimarisha afya ya wananchi. So hiyo ni njia moja ya tumepiga hatua siku ya leo ya kupigana na vita dhidi ya nyama yenye sio halali. So tunangoja ruhusa ya koti ama idhini ya kuweza kuharibu hii nyama na kuizika ndio ziweze kupatana na wananchi huko nje, kwa sababu haijakaguliwa na haifikii kiwango ya afya yenye inahitajika.
Authorities are working to ensure that uninspected meat is removed from the market to prevent the spread of infections. The public is being urged to report any suspicious meat trades to authorities to help curb the growing problem of illegal donkey slaughter and its associated risks. Tizatiengo, GBS News.
Wow, be careful with what you are eating outside there now. Embu Senator Alexander Mundigi is calling on the government to increase capitation funding for secondary schools, especially those in rural areas, to help improve infrastructure and ensure quality education for all learners. The senator says inadequate facilities in these schools are hindering academic performance and contributing to high dropout rates.
Embu Senator Alexander Mundigi has urged the government to raise capitation funding for secondary schools with a focus on those in rural areas. Speaking on Tuesday at ACK St. Joseph Gikiro Secondary School in Bera South constituency, Senator Mundigi highlighted the challenges faced by schools in these areas due to poor infrastructure. Senator Mundigi pointed out that schools with smaller student population receive less government funding due to the current capitation system, which is based on student numbers. He warned that unless the funding system is adjusted, the cycle of low enrollment and high dropout rates will continue.
Kwa hiyo ningeomba serikali, Ministry of Education na Treasury, vile walisema watasaidia elimu, wakitoa pesa mapema, na pia budget ile itakuwako wakati ya mwaka ambaye ile itapitishwa katika June, wale watapitisha ile budget waweze kuongezea pesa, ndio tuweze kuona vile elimu ya juu, elimu vile itapatikana. Kwa hivyo hata shule zingine wakuta haina walimu. Kwa hiyo serikali imefanya kazi mzuri kwa njiri walimu about 76,000 iongezee wengine kwanja JSS na wale wengine hata wa primary na wa secondary, ndio elimu iwe msingi ambaye ile inafaa.
The senator also appealed to former students and other stakeholders to partner with the government in efforts to rebuild and improve their former schools, thereby enhancing learning outcomes.
Kwa hivyo ningeomba wale watu wengine wako na pesa nyingi waweze kuingia kwa mashule zao. Kama mimi shule hii nimekuja siku ya leo, inaitwa Gikiro Secondary School ambaye ilikuwa chini sana. Ningeomba pia motivation iweze kuonekana kwa wale watu walisoma zamani, waweze kuja kusaidia, ndio tuweze kuona elimu vile tutaweza kusaidia kama vile serikali inasaidia.
Gikiro Secondary School Principal Josephat Njeru shared the struggles his school faces due to financial difficulties. He explained that the lack of proper furniture, such as chairs and lockers for teachers, is a direct result of parents' inability to afford school fees and development costs.
We have a problem of finances because the population is not big, so we get very little capitation, such that it is difficult to do much on infrastructure. We also have a problem with the parents' payment of fees, so they can hardly afford to make proper classes, to improve them. And that's why we are seeking from any possible help, any possible donation, so that we can improve the status of our classes, and that will make the students happy about them. It will also make them attractive to learners. And I also believe one of the reasons why we have low population is that the state of the class is not appealing to many students, so they end up not liking the school.
Senator Mundigi's call for increased funding is part of a broader push to ensure that all schools, especially those in rural areas, can provide a conducive environment for learning and attract more students. Reporting for GBS News, Irene Juguna.
Now to international news. Sudan has strongly condemned Kenya for hosting the Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group engaged in a violent power struggle with the Sudanese army. The Sudanese government accuses Kenya of violating international law and undermining Sudan's sovereignty by allowing the RSF to hold talks about forming a parallel government.
In a statement, Sudan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs sharply criticized Kenya for allowing the Rapid Support Forces to hold a meeting in Nairobi. Sudan calls this a blatant disregard for international law, accusing Kenya of interfering in its internal affairs and undermining its sovereignty. The RSF, which is engaged in an ongoing war with Sudan's army, has been accused of horrific war crimes, including ethnic massacres and attacks on displaced persons. Sudan's government warns that Kenya's actions amount to support for these crimes and are a direct challenge to regional stability. Sudan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has warned that Kenya's decision to host the RSF goes beyond diplomatic concern. It is seen as an endorsement of the group's actions, which the Sudanese government calls acts of genocide and crimes against humanity. Sudan has also criticized Kenya for violating bilateral agreements and pledges made not to allow hostile activities against Sudan on its soil. Sudan views this move as a direct challenge to its authority and sovereignty, with fears that the conflict may spread beyond its borders. With both the Sudanese army and RSF engaged in brutal conflict, the situation in Sudan grows more dire, and international condemnation against Kenya highlights the deepening tensions in the region. Reporting for GBS News, Irene Juguna.
And that's all we had for you tonight at GBS News at 9. It is always a pleasure having you on board. Let's do this again next time, same channel. My name is Stephen George, and our sign language interpreter tonight is Paul Madenge. Good night.